What's up, guys? It's your boy JK Primetime. I'm back here with another video. Now today I'm going to be covering not only the breaking news right now that Teddy Bridgewater, the Jets trade Teddy Bridgewater to the Saints, but also at the same time they've also named Sam Darnold as their starting quarterback. So I'm going to address both topics and just my overall thoughts on it, and also if starting Darnold is the right move for the Jets. So to start off, we're going to look at the trade that the Jets made. So they traded Teddy Bridgewater and a 6th-round pick to the Saints for a 3rd-round pick. Now, overall, I think it's a win for both teams in general, because the Jets obviously signed Bridgewater to a low overall, low guaranteed money, high incentive deal. It was only a 1-year deal. At highest, it was going to be $6 million. They were always hyping him up as a good quarterback, a solid quarterback, a solid backup to maybe even a starting option for a team, because many saw, and I kind of saw, that they wanted to, especially in the beginning, they definitely wanted to trade him. He was seen as trade bait, low risk, possibly high reward deal for them. Overall, I can understand why. They did trade. They did lose some draft capital in the trade that they made in the draft to trade up to get Darnold. Giving up future picks for that. So I definitely understand the reasoning for the trade. They also throw in a 6th-round pick, which is whatever in there. They get a 3rd-round pick out of it from the Saints, who, even though they probably will be a playoff team and a higher-ranking playoff team this year, it's still an extra pick. That makes up for somewhat for what they've lost, and with that draft day Darnold trade. Me as a Jets fan, I was kind of hoping that they would keep Bridgewater, because Bridgewater has looked like the best quarterback in the preseason, has looked like the best quarterback on our roster. I think he's looked better than Darnold, and then McCown hasn't played much. We kind of know what we got from McCown, but I was really hoping. I would have at least wanted to see Bridgewater start a couple games. I was really rooting for him, especially coming off, his terrible knee injury that he had a year or two ago. That he's finally came back and has looked good in the preseason. So I was someone who was definitely rooting for him to come and even start for our team, to be honest. But overall, I think it fits out well for the Saints, because the only other options besides Drew Brees they had was Tom Savage and Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, to be honest, seems like more as an athlete than a quarterback. 3rd string, roster bubble kind of guy. He did show that he can make some things happen, but he also very turnover prone. He just doesn't seem to me like a solid quarterback option for a team. And then Tom Savage is, just a backup. He's just a regular backup quarterback guy that you have for depth on your team. He's not really going to be a starter. So they really needed a young guy to come in to either be a backup or even possibly a future starter, which I think they'll do with Bridgewater. Even though he only has 1 year left, especially if he's just a backup this year, he's probably not going to make a huge amount of money. They're probably going to offer him an extension to at least try him out for either if Drew Brees retires this year, or if they decide not to even retain Drew Brees, which I don't think is going to happen, but at least they do have a fallback option in case that does happen. So overall, I think the trade fits both sides. The Jets get the capital they want and what they were planning for in the beginning. Even though I wanted to see him start for the Jets, it's nice to see that both teams win, because the Saints also get a good, viable quarterback option. Now, when it comes to Darnold starting week 1, overall, I can understand why they would want to start in week 1. He was the 3rd overall pick. He's looked pretty good in the preseason for us. I've liked how he's done. He's been able to do a average to above average job at being able to command the offense, especially for a rookie. He's done a good job of being able to command the offense, get him downfield, even if it was, like per usual, for a non-starting rookie, against lesser talent, obviously, because it's the preseason. Overall, though, I am not the biggest fan of him starting week 1. I think he definitely has great potential. He's a good quarterback. I like him as a quarterback. One of the big things, though, was, of course, that he was turnover prone. There was obviously some issues with his his throwing motion, and he's young. He's like with him starting week 1, he will be the youngest starting quarterback in NFL history. McCown, while being 39, is still, we know what we're gonna get out of him. He was a solid quarterback, and to be honest, with his solid starting option for us, and to be honest, with our supporting cast, I don't know if it's the best situation for Darnold. We have decent receiving core. Obviously, Robbie Anderson's decent young receiver. Quincy Enunwa we have. Jermaine Kearse is pretty good as well. But we also don't have the best offensive line, which I think is really going to hurt Darnold, because Godfrey, he's going to go up obviously against good defenses, and he's going to struggle because of the fact that his line won't protect for him. Now, if they make a very basic, offense, maybe more quick throws in there, then it'll definitely help him, because it will, won't need as much burden as on the offensive line. But I was really hoping that Bridgewater could start, give him a couple games, or even have McCown start a couple games. I didn't want Darnold to start week 1. We're a team that's not going to be known to be a playoff team. No one's expecting us to be some top-flight playoff team or have a chance to win a championship. So why throw Darnold out there early? Let him sit for a year, season, and then come up in the second year, presumably have a good preseason again, go in the draft, address offensive line, address some other areas, and really set up the best scenario for him to succeed. Really starting him week 1 is throwing him out into the wolves, and I think it will overall hurt him. I don't see a bad scenario of him getting a year of seasoning. He sits behind, learns from McCown, and doesn't have to get thrown out in a not so good situation with what we have. I mean, especially with our offensive line, I'm worried about how his protection. A big thing with these quarterbacks is their confidence, and I think throwing him behind, who we have in front of us, he might struggle, and that could ruin his confidence as a player. I mean, even look at the second youngest guy, Tommy Maddox. Tommy Maddox started for Denver back in the early 90s. Even though he only started 4 games that season, he still started week 1, 0-4 in those games, 54% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 9 picks. Took 10 sacks in those 4 games. Now, obviously, you can't just look at it and be like, all right, guy back in the 90s, he was young and he started. But overall, the NFL has gone away. A lot of teams have gone away from starting guys at least trying to start from starting guys week 1. I get it, he's a 3rd-round pick. You want to see what he can do. But waiting, for example, look at a guy like Jared Goff, top 10 pick. They waited a year. They got a better core around him, better linemen, better offensive weapons. And you know what? He's done well, a better system. If you had thrown Jared Goff in there with Jeff Fisher's scheme, which they did later in the season, but if they started him week 1, he would have struggled, I think, mightily out the gate, even worse than, what he struggled with, when he actually did come in. He would have started worse. And to be honest, we wouldn't know what would have happened. With that, he had no good supporting cast around him. I see the Jets going down the same road. They have, running back. They have some serviceable guys at running back. Isaiah Crowell, Bilal Powell. They definitely worse at running back than what the Rams were with that. Their line, I think, is maybe not as bad, but it's not too much better. And then with the receiving core, I think it's a tad bit better. It has a tad bit more depth on it. But overall, in my opinion, I don't agree with them starting Darnold week 1 because of those factors. Obviously, the 3 reasons I mentioned. 1 was because of his age, 2 because of his supporting cast, and 3 because he's a guy known for having turnover issues, and having the supporting cast around him is obviously not going to help. But overall, I want to hear what you guys think on both of those scenarios.